Diana, Princess of Wales, captivated the world when she married into the House of Windsor. Unfortunately, she couldn't get the same unconditional love or attention from her husband nor her in-laws. From there, she was sucked into a whirlwind of struggle and scandal that ended with her untimely death. But, as we'll see, that's just one part of it. And the real story of Princess Diana is so much more tragic than people know. Now, Princess Diana's son has finally confirmed what many suspected all along. Her family was very close with the Windsors. Even as a child, Princess Diana had ties to the royal family through her lineage and upbringing. She was the youngest daughter of the then Viscount and Viscountess Althorp, later known as the late Earl Spencer and the Mrs. Shand Kidd. Her birth took place at Sandringham, one of the Queen's private estates, where she spent much of her early childhood. Growing up, Diana had the privilege of counting young princes Edward and Andrew among her childhood playmates, and she affectionately referred to Queen Elizabeth as Aunt Lilibet, as noted in a 1981 Daily Times article covering her marriage to Prince Charles. Furthermore, Diana's family had long-standing connections to the royal household. Her father had served as a royal equerry in the palace, first for King George and later for a young Queen Elizabeth. Meanwhile, her mother had been a lady-in-waiting for the Queen Mother. Their wedding in 1954, held at Westminster Abbey with the Queen as the chief guest, was considered a significant social event of the time. These familial ties provided Diana with a unique perspective and understanding of royal life, even before her marriage to Prince Charles. She was born into a tense situation. Diana Spencer's journey began amidst the tumultuous dynamics of her family, long before she entered the royal spotlight. Her parents, John and Frances Spencer, both held esteemed positions in the nobility, but their marital struggles cast a shadow over their household. The loss of their third child, a son, shortly after birth in 1960, left the family reeling with grief. Diana's arrival in July 1961 brought some solace, yet the lingering sorrow from her brother's passing persisted. In the years following Diana's birth, her family experienced both moments of joy and continued strife. The birth of a son, Charles, 3 years later, offered a glimmer of hope, but it failed to alleviate the underlying tensions. Diana's elder sisters sought refuge in boarding schools, leaving her to navigate the familial discord alongside her younger brother. Despite her efforts to shield him, Diana herself was not immune to the turmoil that surrounded her. As Diana matured, the cracks in her parents' marriage widened, eventually culminating in a dramatic collapse. Years later, Diana would reveal the harrowing truth behind the facade of her parents' relationship. Allegations of physical abuse and infidelity surfaced, painting a starkly different picture from the public perception of their separation. While the official narrative cited her mother's departure for another man as the catalyst, Diana knew there was much more complexity beneath the surface. They had a custody battle over her. Frances Spencer's departure from John Spencer set off a chain of events that would deeply impact Diana and her siblings. In the aftermath of their divorce, John fought for custody of the children, with Frances' own mother unexpectedly siding with him as a witness, sealing the deal in his favor. At the tender age of 7, Diana found herself abruptly separated from her mother, a loss that left her profoundly distraught. The custody battle resulted in a heartbreaking arrangement where Frances could only visit her children on weekends. Diana vividly recalled the pain of their farewells, describing the heart-wrenching moments when she had to part from her mother and witnessing her mother's tears every Saturday night as their time together came to an end. Raised primarily by a series of nannies, Diana and her brother Charles grew up under the care of caretakers until it was time for Diana to follow in her older sister's footsteps and attend boarding school. Unlike Sarah and Jane, who excelled academically, Diana struggled to find her footing in her studies. The upheaval caused by her parents' divorce had disrupted her education, leaving her less focused on academics and more drawn to extracurricular activities and social interactions. Despite these differences, Diana shared one trait with her sisters, an inclination to develop crushes on their former boyfriends. She was the queen's tenant. When she wasn't away at school, Diana spent her formative years at Park House, a property leased by the Spencers on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. The proximity to Sandringham House, where the royal family often vacationed, meant occasional encounters with Queen Elizabeth II and her family. Despite occasional interactions with Princes Andrew and Edward, Diana harbored a sense of dread whenever the royal family visited, an anticipation that foreshadowed future encounters filled with apprehension. However, the upheaval in Diana's life didn't end there. In 1976, her father, John Spencer, uprooted the family once again by relocating them to Northamptonshire after his remarriage to Rayne, Countess of Dartmouth. This move shattered Diana's sense of stability, as Norfolk had been the only home she had ever known. While she had a close bond with her stepfather, her relationship with her new stepmother was fraught with tension, reminiscent of a fairy tale villain. Diana and her siblings derisively nicknamed their stepmother Acid Rain, reflecting the bitterness and resentment they harbored towards her. Tensions reached a boiling point during a party at Althorpe, the family's estate, when Rain made disparaging remarks about Diana's late mother, who had once been the lady of the house. Incensed, Diana nearly pushed Rain down the stairs in a fit of rage, a moment that intensified the animosity between them. Her stepmother wanted them apart. In 1978, Diana experienced a chilling premonition about her father's health. When a friend inquired about John Spencer's well-being, Diana confided, "I've got a strange feeling that he's going to drop down." Sadly, her intuition proved correct when news arrived the following day that her father had collapsed due to a brain hemorrhage. The situation took a turn for the worse when Rain, Diana's stepmother, prevented John Spencer's children from visiting him in the hospital, deepening the rift between them. The family turmoil at home only compounded Diana's struggles at school, leading to academic setbacks. Despite her best efforts, she failed her O-levels, British school exams, twice, ultimately leading her to drop out of school at the age of 16. With the hope of escaping the familial discord, Diana sought independence, but her parents forbade her from moving out or obtaining her own apartment until she turned 18. Determined to forge her own path, Diana devised a plan to gain autonomy. She secured a job as a nanny for a family in Hampshire, which provided her with the opportunity to move to London once she reached the legal age. Upon arriving in the bustling city, Diana embraced newfound freedom, living in a shared house with other young women and taking on various low-paying jobs, including nannying, teaching dance, and even cleaning. It was one of the happiest times of her life, but back home, the rest of her family were looking toward loftier pursuits. Her sister did it first. During a visit to Althorpe to see her family, Diana was surprised to find her sister Sarah in the company of an unexpected guest, Prince Charles, the elder brother of Diana's childhood playmates Andrew and Edward. It was evident that Sarah had developed a significant crush on Charles. When later asked by a biographer about her impressions of the prince during this encounter, Diana didn't hold back. Reflecting on the moment, Diana recalled thinking, "God, what a sad man," expressing her candid assessment of Charles. She also noted how her sister Sarah was overly affectionate towards Charles, describing her behavior as being all over him like a bad rash. Despite her initial negative opinion of Charles, Diana couldn't help but feel flattered by his attention. However, given her age of 16 at the time and her sister's evident interest in Charles, Diana refrained from pursuing anything further. Fast forward to Diana's 19th birthday, and Sarah had seemingly moved on from her infatuation with Charles. During a weekend visit with a friend, Diana found herself engaged in conversation with Charles. Upon commenting on his demeanor at his great-uncle's funeral, Charles made a surprising move that caught Diana off guard. In Diana's own words, Charles practically jumped on her, expressing his loneliness and urging her to cut short her visit and return with him to Buckingham Palace. Diana was left feeling bewildered, unsure of how to navigate this unexpected turn of events, and little did she know that the situation was about to become even more complicated. She was inexperienced. As Diana navigated Charles's advances during that weekend, he extended an invitation for an upcoming sailing trip, which she accepted. Subsequently, she found herself spending a weekend at Balmoral, the grand castle belonging to Charles's family. While Charles's desire to spend time with her both flattered and thrilled Diana, it soon became apparent that she was in over her head. Having never experienced a romantic relationship before, Diana struggled to discern what was considered normal. However, when Charles phoned her apartment, hinting at an important question, Diana sensed that a significant moment was approaching. Throughout this confusing time, Diana sought guidance from her loyal flatmates and a few acquaintances she had made through Charles, although an unexpected figure played a prominent role in offering advice. Charles's confidant, Camilla Parker Bowles, frequently shared insights with Diana about the prince's behavior. Yet it took Diana some time to grasp the depth of Camilla's influence and the true nature of her connection to Charles. By the time Diana fully comprehended the dynamics at play, it was already too late. His proposal was hollow. The next time Diana met with Charles, he expressed how much he had missed her and proposed marriage. However, despite the seemingly romantic moment, there was a disconcerting undertone to Charles's words. Diana couldn't shake the feeling that his expressions lacked genuine affection. His remark, "I love you so much, whatever love means," only heightened her unease. Although Diana sensed that something wasn't right, her youth and innocence prevented her from fully recognizing the significant red flags. The surreal nature of the situation, the brief and less-than-romantic courtship with Charles, their considerable age gap, and the realization that accepting his proposal could lead to her one day becoming the Queen of England, left Diana feeling stunned and overwhelmed. Despite having spent only a handful of times together, she agreed to marry him. Yet, even in that moment, Diana harbored doubts. She admitted to herself that she never envisioned herself becoming queen. Seeking solace, Diana embarked on a trip to Australia, hoping for a few weeks of peace and reflection. However, she knew that once the press caught wind of her engagement, her life would be irrevocably altered. And she was proven right beyond measure. He was cold to her. Despite the unconventional nature of their relationship, Diana genuinely believed that Charles loved her. However, his actions often contradicted this belief. During her time in Australia, Charles didn't reach out to her even once. Upon her return, she received a bouquet of flowers, which initially delighted her. However, the absence of a card suggested that Charles likely wasn't involved in sending them, leaving her disappointed. It seemed more plausible that a thoughtful secretary orchestrated the gesture. Unfortunately, this chilly reception foreshadowed the difficulties ahead. As soon as the press caught wind of Diana's connection to Charles, they swarmed around her relentlessly. The extent of the media frenzy is often underestimated. Diana still lived with flatmates at the time, but they couldn't receive calls from their families due to the constant barrage of reporter inquiries. While Charles called Diana to inform her of Camilla's complaint about 4 reporters near her window, Diana had to contend with a staggering 34 reporters outside her own residence. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Diana refrained from complaining. Instead, she devised her own strategies for coping with the intrusive media scrutiny. She had a need for speed. As Diana grappled with the relentless pursuit of the press, she resorted to risky tactics to shake off the paparazzi. Despite being a novice driver, she discovered that speeding through a green light at the last moment was an effective way to leave the photographers trailing behind. However, this strategy proved to be a foreboding precursor to the tragic events that would later unfold. In her efforts to evade the media, Diana unwittingly put herself in danger. Seeking relief from the relentless scrutiny, Diana turned to Buckingham Palace for assistance. Anticipating support from her new family, she was met with disappointment. Instead of a helping hand, she encountered the uncompromising stance of the firm. They made it clear that she was expected to handle the situation on her own. This early encounter with the palace bureaucracy offered a glimpse into the challenges Diana would face in her relationship with the royal establishment. And as her engagement to Prince Charles was announced to the public, the pressures only intensified, setting the stage for the tumultuous chapters that lay ahead. She was all alone. Following the announcement of Charles and Diana's engagement, there was a whirlwind of activity. Amidst the chaos, Diana found herself at the Queen Mum's residence, expecting a warm reception from her soon-to-be family. However, her arrival was met with silence, and she was greeted with puzzled inquiries about her presence. The atmosphere didn't improve when she moved into Buckingham Palace. Throughout the remainder of her engagement, which was spent at Buckingham Palace, Diana felt largely isolated. Forced to leave her job as a nursery teacher's assistant, she deeply missed the companionship of her former flatmates. The palace felt eerily quiet and lonely. Therefore, when the opportunity arose for her first public appearance alongside Charles, she eagerly embraced it. Their debut as an engaged couple occurred at a charity ball held at Goldsmiths' Hall, where Diana had the chance to meet the iconic princess, Grace of Monaco. Overwhelmed by the complexities of royal protocol and social expectations, Diana confided in Grace, who listened attentively. In a moment of candor, Grace offered a light-hearted but ominous remark, advising Diana, "Don't worry, it gets worse." Little did they know there was a somber truth underlying Grace's jest, which both women would come to understand in due time. She made a disturbing discovery. During her time at Buckingham Palace while engaged to Charles, Diana found herself inadvertently drawn closer to him, but not in the way she had hoped. Instead, she stumbled upon a heartbreaking revelation that shook her to the core. One day, she overheard Charles on the phone expressing undying love to Camilla, stating, "Whatever happens, I will always love you." Additionally, Diana uncovered their affectionate nicknames for each other, Gladys and Fred, upon discovering a bracelet Charles had commissioned with those names engraved. The discovery left her stunned and contemplating her future. It was the first time she seriously considered ending the engagement, prompting her to seek counsel from her sisters. However, their response was unexpected. Rather than offering sympathy, they laughed and advised her to accept the situation as it was. Despite the harsh reality, Diana understood their perspective and realized that humor might be her only coping mechanism. Nevertheless, the tension between Diana and Charles intensified. As the wedding day approached, Diana felt a sense of inevitability and no longer entertained thoughts of turning back. However, the week leading up to the ceremony was fraught with exhaustion and stress, pushing Diana to resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms. She began to struggle with binging and purging as a means of dealing with the overwhelming pressure, a battle that would continue to haunt her in the years to come. Millions of eyes were on her. On July 29, 1981, Diana Spencer made her way down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral to meet Charles, Prince of Wales. Slightly delayed by her voluminous gown, which proved cumbersome in the carriage and during her walk, she finally reached the altar. Before an audience of 3,500 guests, and with millions more awaiting outside and watching from home, she exchanged vows with Charles. Despite the immense pressure of the occasion, Diana found herself immersed in the grandeur of the ceremony. In that moment, her love for her new husband overshadowed any lingering anxieties, even with the knowledge that Camilla was present in the church, observing the proceedings. She made a mistake. The wedding ceremony appeared straight out of a fairy tale, but it wasn't without its mishaps. While exchanging vows, Diana accidentally switched the order of Charles's first two names. However, she wasn't the only one to stumble. Charles made an error in his vows as well. Yet there was one significant deviation from tradition that set their vows apart. They had chosen to omit the vow of obedience typically pledged by the bride to the groom. This progressive decision caused a stir, hinting at the challenges that lay ahead. Amidst the romantic atmosphere, Diana clung to the hope of a happily ever after. However, reality soon shattered this illusion, particularly during their honeymoon. Diana noticed Charles's preoccupation with his books, leaving little room for meaningful connection. Additionally, they were rarely alone, exacerbating Diana's feelings of isolation. As tensions mounted, Diana's struggles with bulimia resurfaced, evident to those around her. Yet the full extent of her suffering remained concealed. She was obsessed. During the initial 3 months of their marriage, Diana found herself consumed by thoughts of Camilla, often dreaming about her nightly. Charles's apparent disregard for their connection only exacerbated Diana's distress. However, a glimmer of relief came when Diana discovered she was pregnant in October of 1981. The news provided a welcomed distraction from her tumultuous feelings and allowed her to settle somewhat into her role as Princess of Wales. However, Diana's pregnancy proved challenging, taking a toll on her already delicate health. Just a few months into her pregnancy, she shocked both herself and the court when she suffered a frightening fall down the stairs. Fortunately, both she and the baby were unharmed. Yet, there's a darker truth behind this incident that often goes overlooked. Years later, Diana confessed that she'd purposely thrown herself down the stairs that day after a fight with Charles, but the story didn't end there. He didn't care about her well-being. After their argument, Charles stormed off to go riding, leaving Diana feeling overwhelmed and distraught. In a moment of desperation, she made the harrowing decision to throw herself down the stairs. While Queen Elizabeth was deeply disturbed by the incident, Charles's response was shockingly callous. He showed no concern for Diana's well-being and seemed to dismiss her entirely. Diana's cries for help fell on deaf ears, foreshadowing the difficult times ahead. As Diana's pregnancy progressed, she reached a breaking point and requested to have an induction scheduled. In June of 1982, their son, Prince William, was born healthy and happy. However, Diana's joy as a new mother was short-lived as she grappled with postpartum depression and felt increasingly isolated from her in-laws. She describes this period as a profound abyss of pain, and the years following William's birth seemed to pass by in a blur. They had a brief happy period. In 1984, Princess Diana and Prince Charles found themselves expecting another child, and this time, things felt different. Diana didn't experience as much sickness during her pregnancy, and she and Charles grew closer in the final months leading up to the birth. However, Diana harbored a secret from Charles. She knew he desired a daughter, but she had seen from the scans that she was carrying a boy. Despite this, Diana hoped that the joyous atmosphere would carry them through the birth of their second child. However, reality proved otherwise. The last 6 weeks of Diana's pregnancy were perhaps the brightest moments of her marriage to Charles. Unfortunately, it all came crashing down after the birth of their son, Prince Harry. Charles distanced himself from Diana once again, expressing his disappointment even to the Queen. Her response was stern, reminding him to be grateful for the arrival of a healthy child. But did this mean Queen Elizabeth was supportive of Diana? Not exactly. While Princess Diana and Queen Elizabeth didn't have a particularly warm relationship, Diana noted there was a certain level of mutual respect between them during her marriage to Charles. However, the Queen attributed all their marital issues to Diana's struggle with bulimia, believing it to be the root cause of Charles's dissatisfaction. If only she knew the truth about her son's actions behind closed doors. She hurt herself. Diana and Charles's arguments reached a disturbing level when Diana resorted to self-harm to express her pain and frustration. Often, in moments of emotional turmoil, she would cut herself in front of Charles, seeking acknowledgement and understanding. However, instead of offering support, Charles either ignored her cries for help or dismissed them as attention-seeking behavior. Despite her clear distress, Diana felt misunderstood and neglected by her husband. The immense pressure Diana faced, coupled with the demands of royal life, led to her struggles with self-harm and bulimia. Doctors and psychologists prescribed medication to help manage her symptoms, but Diana believed that rest and understanding were what she truly needed to heal. Unfortunately, her pleas for respite fell on deaf ears as her packed schedule of royal engagements persisted. While she found purpose in her charity work, the rest of her obligations only deepened her sense of dread and isolation. He betrayed her again. After 5 years of marriage, Diana was at her breaking point. The realization that Charles was back with Camilla shattered her, but instead of retreating into herself, she sought solace and happiness amidst the despair. Watching Charles and Camilla rekindle their romance, Diana decided to play the same game. She turned her attention to James Hewitt, a member of the household cavalry and her riding instructor. What started as a passing interest soon evolved into a full-blown affair, bringing its own set of challenges for the princess. However, Charles wasn't the sole source of Diana's troubles. His entire family contributed to her struggles. While she generally got along with them, the relentless press scrutiny exacerbated tensions. Her relationship with Sarah Ferguson, in particular, was icy until a tragic accident brought them together in an unexpected way. She worried she'd lost him. In 1988, Prince Charles and Prince Andrew, along with their wives and entourages, were on a skiing trip in Switzerland. Fergie, who was pregnant at the time, returned shaken after a fall, and Diana was helping her to bed when they overheard an aide mention an avalanche. Fear gripped them both, knowing their husbands were still on the mountain. After a tense wait, Charles called to assure them of his safety, but delivered the devastating news of the loss of their friend, Major Hugh Lindsay. In that moment, Diana took charge. The shock of the accident left Charles unable to act, so Diana stepped in, organizing arrangements to repatriate Lindsay's body to his wife. As the days passed, the tragedy deepened. Lindsay had been married for less than a year, and his pregnant wife Sarah was left to grapple with the loss. Diana provided support, taking care of funeral arrangements and offering comfort to Sarah throughout the ordeal. But for the royal family, the worst was yet to come. They found he was at fault. Diana and Charles believed the worst was behind them after the accident, but they were mistaken. Authorities launched an investigation to determine if Charles could be held accountable for negligence, as he was responsible for the skiing party. Although no charges were filed, it was confirmed that Charles's group triggered the avalanche that resulted in Lindsay's death. Amidst the stress and grief, Charles directed his frustration towards Diana. Initially, Diana reverted to old coping mechanisms, struggling with binging and purging. However, with the support of a friend who issued an ultimatum, Diana made a pivotal decision to seek treatment for her bulimia, taking the first step towards recovery. She finally fought back. Seeking help for her bulimia empowered Diana, giving her the courage to confront both her husband and Camilla. Despite typically avoiding Camilla, Diana felt compelled to attend her sister's 40th birthday celebration in 1989, determined not to let Charles go alone. After allowing them some time together, Diana intervened, asking Charles and his friend to leave. Alone with Camilla, Diana calmly addressed the elephant in the room, acknowledging the affair between Camilla and Charles. She didn't make grand demands, but simply requested honesty and respect. With that, Diana left, feeling a weight lifted from her shoulders. Though it didn't halt Charles and Camilla's relationship, it marked a significant step forward for Diana in asserting herself. She opened up. Battling bulimia had left Diana feeling disconnected from those around her, including her husband, and it isolated her from the world. However, emerging from that struggle allowed her to reconnect with humanity. She embraced her role as the people's princess, spending time engaging with people from all walks of life, whether on the streets or in hospital wards, listening to their stories and empathizing with their struggles. Through these interactions, Diana transformed herself and the world around her. At a time when fear and stigma surrounded HIV and AIDS, she courageously stood up for those affected. In a poignant moment, Diana defied conventions by not only shaking hands with an AIDS patient but also embracing him. In a moving speech, she articulated her belief that HIV does not make people dangerous to know, advocating for compassion and understanding. This bold act marked a significant turning point in the fight against AIDS and challenged societal perceptions of the disease. She had a horrible year. As Diana was finding her voice and starting to assert herself, a whirlwind of drama swept into her life, bringing turmoil like never before. In a span of just a few months in 1992, the intimate details of her personal life were splashed across the tabloids, adding to her already considerable challenges. The storm of drama began with a heartbreaking loss. In March of 1992, Princess Diana mourned the passing of her father, John Spencer. With his death, Charles inherited the title of the 9th Earl Spencer and assumed ownership of the family estate at Althorpe. Amid the grief of losing his father, Charles took the surprising step of removing his stepmother, Reine, from their home. But he wasn't acting alone in this decision. She got revenge on her stepmother. As Charles evicted Reine and dismissed her staff, his security team ensured that she didn't take anything from the house, asserting that it all belonged to the Spencer family. Adding to the tension, Diana personally supervised as Reine's maid packed her belongings. When she spotted luggage monogrammed with an S, symbolizing Spencer, Diana claimed it as Spencer property and instructed the maid to pack everything in garbage bags. Charles then unceremoniously kicked the bags down the stairs toward Reine. Talk about making a statement. Before 1992, Diana's struggles, her husband's infidelity, her battles with bulimia and depression, and even her suicide attempts, had been closely guarded secrets, though rumors of marital discord were widely known. That year, Diana made the bold decision to reveal the truth about her life as the Princess of Wales. In June, excerpts from the book Diana, Her True Story began appearing in the Sunday Times, with headlines such as Diana driven to 5 suicide bids by uncaring Charles. With her story now public, it captivated the world's attention like never before. They finally separated. Diana had never imagined she could escape her marriage to Charles, having pledged to herself and her in-laws to endure it indefinitely. However, the previous year's separation of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson had shown her there might be a way out. When excerpts from Diana, Her True Story were published, it forced the palace's hand, leading Diana and Charles to make a momentous decision. After more than a decade of marriage, Princess Diana and Prince Charles officially separated. Diana had intended to share her story on her own terms. Yet, shortly after excerpts from her book emerged, someone else exposed the private details without her consent. A tape recording purportedly capturing a conversation between Diana and childhood friend James Gilby from 1989 surfaced, suggesting an affair between them. In the recording, she expressed concerns about a possible pregnancy, while he affectionately referred to her as "darling" and "squidgy," prompting the media to dub the incident Squidgygate. But the revelation of secret tapes was far from over. Princess Diana faced the fallout from Squidgygate, but there was yet another alarming secret tape waiting to surface. This time, it captured a conversation between Charles and Camilla from 1989. The recording, spanning 8 minutes, was remarkably explicit and contained a notorious exchange where Charles expressed a desire to inhabit Camilla's trousers, perhaps as a tampon. Quite cringe-worthy. The controversy surrounding the tape reached a fever pitch, prompting both Diana's and Charles's staff to engage in a covert PR battle behind the scenes, each vying for public sympathy. But they weren't the only ones involved. Prince Philip reached out to Diana, expressing hopes for reconciliation. Meanwhile, Diana had also been busy with her own correspondence, having written letters to the Queen Mother. The contents of these letters remain a mystery, but they were deemed so scandalous that Princess Margaret, Charles's aunt, made the decision to burn them in 1993. Little did anyone know there were more shocks in store. She spilled the beans. The media hounded Diana relentlessly, concocting one scandalous story after another and linking her to various individuals. In a bold move to reclaim her narrative, Diana granted a revealing interview with Martin Bashir. It was during this interview that she famously quipped, "Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," referring to her husband's extramarital affairs. The interview marked a turning point after enduring years of turmoil. In December 1995, Queen Elizabeth penned a letter to both Diana and Charles, urging them to pursue a divorce. They agreed, but the drama didn't end there. Rather than disputes over custody or finances, the focus shifted to Diana's title as Her Royal Highness. Reports surfaced that Prince Philip had threatened to strip her of the title months earlier. Diana's response was nothing short of memorable. "My title is a lot older than yours, Philip." While the Queen was supportive of Diana retaining her title, Charles pushed for its removal. However, Diana found an unexpected ally in her corner. They knew she loved them. Throughout her son's upbringing, Diana showered them with boundless love and affection, a devotion that left a lasting impression. Their unwavering loyalty to her was evident, especially when Prince William vowed to reinstate her title once he ascended to the throne. Time would tell if he would uphold that pledge. Amidst the title dispute, a particularly malicious rumor surfaced during the divorce proceedings. It was speculated that Diana herself had propagated a story alleging Charles's involvement with his personal assistant, Tiggy Legabourk, and even suggested she had terminated a clandestine pregnancy. Reports claimed Diana confronted Tiggy at a social event, offering a remorseful remark akin to, "Sorry about the baby." It was a tumultuous period, and the divorce failed to bring about any respite. Following the legal conclusion of her marriage to Charles, many anticipated Diana's return to her ancestral home, Althorp, a place she and her brother Charles had reclaimed from their stepmother. However, Diana opted against residing there, instead choosing to spend her remaining years in a set of apartments at Kensington Palace. She believed in signs. Diana maintained a circle of psychics and astrologers within her inner circle, consulting them for insights into her life. While she often approached their predictions with a degree of skepticism, there were occasions where she placed significant belief in their foresight. Prior to her divorce, she confided in a friend who predicted she would marry somebody who's foreign or who has foreign blood. Although Diana did not enter into another marriage, the prediction held a semblance of truth. Following her divorce, Diana embarked on a relationship with Hasnat Khan, a British Pakistani heart surgeon. This wasn't merely a fleeting romance. Diana was deeply enamored with Khan. However, their love faced formidable challenges due to Khan's intensely private nature. Diana found herself compelled to fabricate stories to conceal their affair, initially managing to keep it under wraps. Yet the strain of secrecy eventually became unbearable. They even considered tying the knot, but Khan was wary of the relentless media scrutiny that would inevitably engulf them, potentially jeopardizing their privacy and peace of mind. However, there might have been additional complexities underlying their decision. Diana's butler divulged that her mother harbored reservations about her relationship with a Muslim man, leading to a rift between mother and daughter that remained unresolved. Various narratives exist regarding the breakup, with conflicting reports about who initiated it. Nevertheless, they parted ways in the summer of 1997 after an almost 2-year-long relationship. Subsequently, friends revealed that many viewed Khan as the love of Diana's life. Yet, even if this assertion holds true, she appeared to move on swiftly from their romance. She fell for another man. During a summer retreat in 1997 to the south of France, Diana and her sons enjoyed the hospitality of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al-Fayed. It was during this getaway that she crossed paths with Al-Fayed's son, Dodi, sparking a romantic involvement after the vacation concluded. Their romance blossomed further during a series of cruises, during which the paparazzi captured them, sharing intimate moments. These revealing photographs not only ignited a media frenzy, but also set in motion a chain of events that culminated in Diana's tragic demise. As news of Diana's new relationship spread, the press intensified their pursuit of the couple across France. Despite attempts to evade the paparazzi by altering dinner plans and employing decoy vehicles, their efforts proved futile in averting the impending tragedy. Following their departure from the Paris Ritz in a decoy car, Henri Paul, the hotel's head of security, assumed the role of driver in a Mercedes intended to transport Diana and Dodi to his apartment. However, fate had a different outcome in store. They never made it out. Shortly after midnight on August 31, 1997, Diana, Dodi, Henri Paul, and Trevor Rees-Jones approached the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in their car. As they entered the tunnel, a swarm of motorcycles carrying photographers surrounded the vehicle, but it never emerged from the other side. The car collided with the tunnel, striking walls and pillars before coming to a halt. While the scene appeared grim, the reality was even more harrowing. Some of the pursuing photographers rushed to offer assistance, while others callously continued to take pictures. Meanwhile, authorities arrived on the scene, dividing their attention between investigating the crash and apprehending the photographers responsible, seizing their film rolls. Medical personnel attended to the injured passengers, 2 of whom remained conscious but in critical condition. She didn't survive. When ambulances arrived 15 minutes after the crash, both Rees-Jones and Diana were conscious. Diana was speaking, intermittently uttering, "Oh my God." A doctor initially suspected she was in shock, but the reality was far more dire. Shortly after emergency medical technicians extricated her from the car, she went into cardiac arrest. Despite their efforts to revive her, she was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital, revealing more extensive injuries than initially believed. Approximately 3 hours after the crash, Diana was declared deceased. The aftermath of her passing was profoundly heartbreaking. Prince Charles and her sisters hurried to France to retrieve Diana's body, while mourners left over 1 million bouquets outside the gates of Kensington Palace. Over the following days, the floral tribute grew to staggering heights, reaching up to 5 feet tall in certain spots. The public mourning at the funeral was equally extensive, and as details of the incident emerged, the tragedy only deepened. Her family mourned privately. After receiving the news from France, Prince Charles had to wake William and Harry up before dawn to tell them about their mother's passing. While the royal family expressed their grief, they faced criticism for remaining tight-lipped about the tragedy. They later explained that this silence was to protect William and Harry's privacy during such a difficult time. In the midst of the royal family's controversial response to Diana's death in 1997, it was William's grandfather, Prince Philip, who played a pivotal role. he convinced William and Harry to walk behind their mother's coffin with a few poignant words. When the young princes hesitated, Philip reportedly said to his eldest grandson, "If you don't walk, I think you'll regret it later. If I walk, will you walk with me?" At the funeral, Philip, William, Harry, Charles, and Diana's brother walked behind the coffin from Westminster Abbey to Buckingham Palace, watched by millions. However, many still sought answers about what had transpired. He had been hiding something. After Diana's death, several investigations were launched to determine the causes of the crash. While speed and the presence of paparazzi were expected factors, there was one surprising revelation. The driver, Henry Paul, had both alcohol and prescription medication in his system. While many investigations attributed the crash to this combination, others remained skeptical. For almost 10 years, Mohammed Al-Fayed, the father of Diana's romantic partner Dodi Fayed, who also died in the crash, claimed that his son's death was the result of a murder plot orchestrated by MI6. He tirelessly campaigned for further investigation, even demanding the release of the NSA's file on Diana. Although Al-Fayed eventually ceased his efforts, it wasn't because he stopped believing. Rather, he chose to let it go for the sake of William and Harry. However, his theory is not the only conspiracy surrounding Diana's tragic end. And intriguingly, Diana herself entertained a few conspiracy theories during her lifetime. She was suspicious. Princess Diana always harbored suspicions that the firm had it out for her, and she had good reason to think so. Consequently, she occasionally tasked her own staff with investigating incidents. One of their more surprising discoveries pertained to the leak of the tape famously known as Squidgygate. Following her death, one of Diana's staff members revealed that he had concluded that the establishment, as he termed them, had deliberately leaked the tape to embarrass her. But this was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to disturbing allegations about them. Throughout Diana and Charles's marriage, there was a constant presence: Camilla. However, in 1993, Diana began to suspect that Charles was hiding an even darker secret. As mentioned earlier, she believed that he was also involved in an affair with his personal assistant and their children's former nanny, Tiggy Lega Burke, and that he intended to marry her. But that wasn't the end of it. Diana also believed that Charles wanted the firm to orchestrate her demise so that he could clear the path to be with Tiggy. She had a secret crush. Diana lived in constant fear of the firm, expressing her suspicions multiple times that they were plotting against her. These fears traced back to a particular incident from years prior. In the early 1990s, Diana revealed that between 1984 and 1986, before her affair with James Hewitt, she had been deeply in love with someone else. This revelation sparked immediate speculation, and as people pieced together the puzzle, a clearer picture emerged. In 1986, Diana's security team decided to reassign her bodyguard Barry Manicky to a different detail. And the reason behind this decision was scandalous. It was determined by his superiors that his relationship with the princess was inappropriate, leading to later speculation that he might have been the man Diana was in love with during the years in question. She lost her love. While Diana never explicitly revealed the identity of the man she claimed to have been in love with, she did make statements suggesting she was willing to abandon her royal life for him. She once expressed, we were just so in love, I was just so desperate. It was like a fairy tale." Though her close friends denied any affair with Manicky, Diana's poignant remarks about him over the years fueled suspicions to the contrary. However, their tale concluded tragically. Approximately a year after his reassignment from Diana's security detail, Barry Manicky met his demise in a car accident. Diana harbored suspicions immediately, directing them squarely at the firm, her in-laws. Although official investigations ruled his death as an accident, Diana remained convinced for years that the firm had orchestrated Manicky's demise. Yet, Manaki wasn't the only former lover that later became subject to speculation. She also broke hearts. Princess Diana's affair with James Hewitt is widely known, but the full extent of their relationship's tragedy is often overlooked. Their romance spanned 5 tumultuous years before Diana decided to end it in 1991. The aftermath was devastating, particularly for Hewitt, who admitted to grappling with suicidal thoughts in the wake of their breakup. However, this wasn't the end of his tumultuous journey. In 2003, Hewitt made headlines again when he attempted to sell a collection of letters penned by Diana during their affair for a staggering $10 million. This move drew swift condemnation from Diana's friend and occasional rival, Sarah Ferguson, who denounced it as a grievous betrayal. Ferguson's intervention reignited speculation about Hewitt's connection to Prince Harry, despite the timeline clearly indicating that their affair began after Harry's birth. Prince Harry, who has faced his own share of challenges following his mother's tragic passing. He learned from her path. In January 2020, Prince Harry sent shockwaves through the royal family when he and his wife, Meghan Markle, announced their decision to step back from their roles as senior royals. The news reverberated globally, prompting intense speculation about the motivations behind their unprecedented move. As the dust settled, Harry's underlying reasons for the decision began to emerge, sparking widespread debate and analysis. Many observers speculated that Harry's desire to shield his own child from the pressures and pitfalls of royal life, particularly in light of his own traumatic experiences, played a significant role in his decision. The specter of his mother's tragic death loomed large over Harry's life, and it's understandable that he would want to protect his family from similar turmoil. After months of speculation, Harry and Meghan decided to set the record straight. In a candid interview, Meghan revealed the immense struggles she faced within the royal family and the relentless scrutiny of the press. She bravely disclosed her mental health struggles, including moments when she contemplated suicide, and shockingly revealed that when she sought help from the royal institution, she was met with indifference. Harry, too, didn't shy away from addressing his own grievances. He openly criticized his father, Prince Charles, for his perceived lack of support and warmth following Diana's death, revealing that their relationship had become strained and distant. The revelation of Charles's seemingly cold demeanor came as a surprise to many, but perhaps it shouldn't have, given the complexities of royal family dynamics that have been brewing for years. Her worst moment was caught on camera. Just a month before his wedding to Diana, Charles embarked on a trip, leaving Diana behind. The poignant moment captured by photographers at the airport showed Diana in tears as she bid farewell to her fiancé. However, there's a deeper layer of heartbreak to that iconic photograph. It marks the moment when Diana finally resigned herself to the reality of Charles's relationship with Camilla. On that day, Diana overheard Charles and Camilla speaking on the phone. Despite having the option to eavesdrop by picking up the extension, Diana made a heart-wrenching decision to refrain from interfering and quietly left them to their conversation. Reflecting on that moment later, Diana expressed how profoundly it affected her, admitting, "It just broke my heart." Unfortunately, it was a wound that never truly healed. Queen of People's Hearts. As noted in her obituary by the New York Times, Princess Diana seemed to have found her stride in the year leading up to her untimely death. After enduring years of solitude, emotional turmoil, and feelings of rejection, she appeared to have finally gained a sense of self-worth and optimism for the future. According to friends, she exuded confidence, self-assurance, and a newfound outgoing nature. In a 1995 interview, Diana expressed her desire to become the Queen of People's Hearts, a goal that defined her last year as she devoted herself to charitable causes close to her heart. She focused on organizations tackling issues such as AIDS, leprosy, homelessness, cancer research, and the well-being of sick children, as well as supporting the English National Ballet. While Diana's passing remains a profound loss, her legacy lives on through the efforts of those who were close to her, particularly Princes William and Harry. They have continued her humanitarian work by advocating for causes she deeply cared about, including landmine clearance, AIDS awareness, and promoting mental health support without stigma. Her memory remains alive in the hearts of millions, perpetuating her legacy of compassion and activism. As we reflect on Princess Diana's enduring legacy and the impact she continues to have on charitable causes and humanitarian efforts, it's evident that her influence transcends generations. Her sons, Princes William and Harry, have admirably carried on her legacy, embodying her compassion and dedication to making the world a better place. As we commemorate her memory, let us continue to honor her spirit by supporting the causes she held dear and spreading kindness in our communities. What aspect of Princess Diana's legacy resonates most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content about Princess Diana's enduring legacy. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.